Namaskar, my sweet ones. I am recording this session because this weekend is my daughter's college graduation, and I'm in Los Angeles for the weekend with many little activities, and I wanted to be certain that I could share time with you. So here it is on video. One announcement, one housekeeping announcement. City and I would very much like to have as many of you as possible join us for our next in-person retreat, which is scheduled for 2023, January 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, somewhere in California. We're still debating on that, but we'll let you know as soon as the details have been confirmed. But we'd like as many of you as possible to join us for this extended time together. It will be really yummy, really juicy. So today, I'd like to speak about staying consistent with your spiritual path. I have many questions about that when I sit with women and they say, I did a 40-day program and I loved it, and then on day 41 I stopped. I go to a yoga class and buy a series of classes and I go, and then as soon as the series ends, I stop. That it's difficult to maintain a practice over a length of time, and just some questions around what is that and how do I work on finding ways to be more consistent, and what does it mean when I keep stopping? Does it mean I should be doing something else? Does it mean that I should not be doing this, that I just let life be my spiritual journey? What should I be gleaning from this? And so I want to just touch upon a few truths about the spiritual journey and ways that we can look at it, maybe different ways to look at the spiritual journey. Certainly, because you're here and you're listening to this, you have a longing to be supporting your own spirit journey and to be on a spiritual journey. It's not a casual thought for you. You've made a commitment. In many ways, this gathering is just one of the commitments that you've made. So you have an internal barometer that is saying to you, please find this way in your life. Please follow this path and integrate it into your life in some manner. So the question becomes, if it's difficult, do I have the wrong path, the wrong manner, or is it because this path is just difficult in general? So I want to speak to some of those possibilities. The first truth is it is hard to do this alone. This is one of the reasons that City and I have created and organized this group, is that supporting one another in our spiritual journey is really important to us, because we've been supported throughout the years in our spirit journey. And we know that it is hard to do alone. Not only the questions, but just the inspiration and the grittiness of it makes it a really challenging journey when it's alone. So find a spirit buddy. We have a beautiful group of women that have joined. Pick one and make a spirit buddy and have an agreement between you that you will support one another's practice, whatever you have discerned is your practice, so that you have someone that you can be accountable to, and that it's really when you know somebody's checking in and concerned about you with something, you're more likely to do it. So find a spirit buddy, ask her to support you, share what your practice is, what the challenges are, what your deepest longing is around being on a spiritual journey, and check in with one another. You can make it a daily check-in or a weekly check-in, but just it's a text. It doesn't have to be a phone call or an email. It can be a text with cute emojis, but just that we know somebody else is treading on this path with us. Find that spirit buddy. And if you want us to help with that, we can match you up with a spirit buddy. The second truth is that it's easy to forget about the long-term consequences of small choices. So we decide one morning, well, I'm just tired. I won't do it this morning, but I'll do it tomorrow. And that sets up a dynamic for us where it's actually difficult to jump back in. And I'm going to speak to this coming from another vantage point in a moment. But we know that repetition is building a pattern. And building a pattern is what makes it easier for us to have a long-term practice. So this is why we talk about doing 40-day practices, or doing 40-day mantras, or whatever there's a time on it, so that you make a mental commitment to a certain length of time, which actually enhances and makes the process easier for you when you have a countdown. When we don't have an expectation of the length of time, we often find that we are on, off, on, off, on, off. And so just recognizing that by taking a day off, you're making that mountain a bigger journey. It's harder. It becomes easier in the repetition of it. We do this even in exercise. If you start a program and you are running every day or walking every day with someone, once you start it, you don't want to miss a day because you've done it for 20 days or 30 days or 6 months or whatever. You become very committed to that process. So this is part of the tying into a spirit buddy, and this is also recognizing that having repetition and having consistency is, even though it feels really challenging, is one of the easiest ways for long-term success. Truth number 3, when we fall off the spiritual wagon, when we just can't roll out of bed in the morning and do this spirit practice, whatever our discipline is, we often enter into a cycle of guilt that ultimately sabotages our progress even more. So what if we learn to forgive ourselves immediately? I didn't get out of bed. I didn't do my practice this morning. I forgive myself. I jump back on. That we don't hold it as part of a self-judgment, self-limiting, or the idea that if you fall off one day, well, then you might as well really just get off the wagon. And then there becomes a gap that widens to a point where we don't re-enter for months on end. But forgiving ourselves and really accessing that place that says, sometimes I just can't get up and it's okay. And I'm going to instantly say, this is okay. Tomorrow or later today, I'm going to jump back on the wagon. But giving yourself permission to have moments and days when you just need to do something different, but not as an excuse to really sever the relationship you have with your discipline for a week or a month or whatever. You might be traveling, you might be sick, you might have house guests, you might have a sick child. There are many things that can interrupt our spiritual practice, and additional guilt coming from us that somehow we didn't rise to the occasion by gutting it out isn't actually helpful. So this practice of instant self-compassion, self-love is a practice that will also benefit us towards extending it to others. So one of the ways that we learn how to be in love and compassion for others around us is to extend it to ourselves first. Always in the Buddhist metta practice, which many of you have done, the metta meditation practice, we extend love to ourselves. That's part of the practice. The practice isn't simply what can we do outside of ourselves. The practice is also what can we do inside of ourselves, that we are treating ourselves as kindly as we would treat others, and vice versa. So let's look at the possibility of instant forgiveness, instant capacity to say, okay, I needed a break today, and jump back on. It's the jumping back on piece that we really need to look at, our consistency. The fourth truth is get clear, stay consistent. Back to consistency, but get clear is about what is the practice you're putting together. Many of you have individual practices that you already participate in. And some of you have picked up the micro practices that City and I have extended to you. And you have a basket of possibilities of how you might create your spirit discipline for the day. You have to know yourself. Some of us can get up in the morning and say, today I feel like doing extra chanting, but not doing this. And tomorrow I might feel like just sitting in silence and not doing something else. But most people work really well when they have a set plan. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. That's your entire practice. But how about the notion that you can change that up? So you might do that order of spiritual mini practices for a month or 40 days. And then you might decide that you want to do a slightly different set of practices. So there's no reason when you have a basket of tools that you have to use only the same tools. Put the tool back in the basket, bring out another. But let's do it with some consciousness, not freneticness, so that we're not just changing. Let's just say when the rhythm, some people have a longer, a broader timeline for how long they can stay in the same repetitive behavior. And some need a bit more inspiration. Shift it up, make a change. You have to know yourself. When we bump up against ourselves and our willingness to have consistency, let's look at what is stopping us. Let's not just say, well, it's not for me. Let's look at what's stopping us and what can I integrate and what can I remove so that I can stay consistent on this path. The next is try to do something that aligns with your interests. When you're choosing the combination of many practices that you're doing, that you're putting into your daily discipline, look at where you have your interest intersecting with your spirit journey. So if you are a really creative person and you paint or you draw or you write, those are activities that are very spiritual, and setting the tone for those activities by lighting a lamp and maybe doing an affirmation or a short mantra practice beforehand and integrating that creativity that you have as part of your spiritual discipline. Now you've done two things. You've lengthened the spiritual discipline for the day, and you've integrated something that can use your divine download, the information and the connectedness that you're getting from your divine connection. You're integrating that into your creative process, and that's where it belongs. Our creative processes are motivated and inspired by our spirit journey. So when we weave them together, we can find a lot of inspiration in both. So bring in your creative process, that which you love to do, and consider it as part of your overall spiritual discipline for the day. Don't just say it has to be yoga, breath work, mantras, that all creative aspects of us are part of our spiritual journey. And adjust your practice according to your needs. So we need to look at, what am I trying to harness and to improve or to drop? How am I trying to shift my consciousness? And we have to be really aware to draw this conclusion. But you may say, what I really want to work on for the next 40 days is silence. I want to bring in more silence, spaciousness, solitude into my life. So create your practice around micro practices that support silence, solitude, spaciousness, so that you're supporting the growth and the deepening that you're desiring to happen. So you're not just arbitrarily taking a practice because someone else said this is a good practice for you. You're thinking, what are the aspects of myself that I want to support? Perhaps you're going through a really deep grieving period. There's been a loss in your life on some level, and you need the sweetness of addressing that. Then create your micro practice around what are the practices that support a grieving process. And that's your spiritual discipline. And you can set it for 40 days. A mandala is 40 or 48 days. So we generally will tie our sutras, we'll do our mala mantra chanting, we'll set up practices with a minimum of 40 or 48 days. That's an established amount of time that is beneficial to creating a new discipline. So take a 40-day, take your life in chunks of 40-day periods in terms of your spiritual discipline, and imagine that you'll do something for 40 days and you'll reevaluate. You'll say, okay, I really needed that type of practice for those 40 days. Now I need something different, something different. Truth number 5, the deepest wells often produce the most water. So one of the debates that we have around our spiritual journey and our how we pull in spiritual truths and where we look for our wisdom and knowledge is, are you a singularly focused person that dives really deep into one teaching or one teacher or one practice? Or are you a cornucopia where you pick up pieces across the board from different traditions and different wisdom teachings, and you find that mixing and matching, you might pick something from one tradition, a meditation from one, and a yoga practice from another, and you put them together in a way that suits you. You have to know yourself. However, almost everyone will tell you that when you go deeper into one particular practice or discipline or teaching, there's more juiciness more water in the depth of that well to bring back up. So you have to ask yourself the question, am I skirting the issue of going deeper by saying that I just want to try a lot of things on the surface? It's a really serious question, because avoidance of depth can be our way of avoiding the juiciness that comes up when we're facing ourselves, and it can be unpleasant. But until we get into that cauldron and into the juiciness of that deep well, it might be difficult for you to really hit the points that you need to hit about what's important in this journey for you. So that's one of the benefits of staying with something, a practice, for at least 40 days, is to see what water you bring up from that well that you're digging, and give yourself an opportunity to see, is this quenching my thirst? Is this meeting me where I am? Or am I just doing it rote? So ask yourself, but create opportunities to go deep. And I'm again going to say a 40-day practice. Try creating a 40-day practice and note, maybe you write down, you journal, what are the benefits and what are the aha moments that I'm getting as I'm going through this 40-day practice. Truth number 6, be a river, not a swamp. So remembering that the mountain stream carries fresh, life-giving water because it flows down and out. It doesn't stop. A swamp is stagnant. And our creative juices that come through us and that opening from which we receive divine inspiration has to be a flow. And if we have stagnant waters, a stagnant practice, a stagnant attitude, a stagnant outlook, we will not be able to have the flow going through us that allows us to connect to that divine source and to integrate with that divine source. It's a source. The river is a source of divine beauty and inspiration. And we want that source to be coming through us in a beautiful way, cleansing us and taking new and different outlooks and possibilities and aha moments through us. We do not want to be stagnant. We have to ask ourselves, am I sitting in stagnancy because it's easier? I don't have to do any extra work. I don't have to look any deeper. We're trying to plumb out all of the pieces that are not fresh and alive in us so that all of us is carrying a level of vitality and a level of juiciness that is alive, to be the most alive on every cell level that we can. So be a river, not a swamp. Truth number 7, identify your blessings. They are the key and are a portal always into our spirit journey. I know many of you who start your day with a gratitude journal or a gratitude recitation or just a moment of gratitude, or you may do that around your meals when you eat. Having gratitude and noticing and recording, whether it is simply in our mind or it's written, what we are in gratitude for. The blessings in our lives, the more we connect with those, the more we feel inspired to stay on this movement of our spirit journey. So find a practice, or at least sit for a moment in your practice. Part of your daily micro practices may be simply sitting and going through the blessings and gratitude pieces that you hold in your life for that day. Truth number 8, nurture a shared prayer life. So prayers, when we look through all different traditions, they talk about a prayer life, not specific to a specific God or deity, but prayer in general as an opening and an offering of us to the divine consciousness, the divine beauty, the divine creation that we are a part of, but offering ourselves into that and receiving from that, creating a relationship between us and the divine. That's what this is all about. This is why we are on a spiritual path, so that we are in relationship with the divine that is within and without. This is our aim, is to have that fluidity between the inner and outer, so that it all becomes part of one big expression into the world. So I have one idea, is that we should start a prayer chain in our circle. I'm going to actually look into that, so that we there are times when you have specific prayers for the healing and health and well-being of a loved one or a friend or someone in the world that you may not even know. It's a wonderful way for us to outpour into the world how we feel about different situations, and allowing our prayers to link together like a chain of prayers that we send into the world. So we've been doing that in a way with our prayer time that we take, our 11 minutes that we take on Friday mornings. But I'm thinking that we might actually make a daily consciousness out of it, where we each have a prayer and we add one on to it, and we add one on, and it just passes on. So at the end of the day, maybe there are 20 different prayers that are part of it. Being in constant relationship with our divine essence and how much power we have to offer into the world is really the sweetest place that we can be. It's what else is there? What else is there? Ultimately, what else is there? What are we doing to shift ourselves so that when we leave this plane, we have left in a place and from a place that we're satisfied with? All of the other things around us are unimportant, but how we are and how we can be in relationship in the intangible pieces of our life are much more important than the tangible pieces of our life. Truth number 10, solitude is a portal of support in your spiritual journey. So using nature to access solitude is an exquisite way to bring in spaciousness, silence, solitude. Walking in nature by yourself, or walking in nature without speaking along with a friend, is absolutely critical in our lives to keep nature into our space, because nature knows silence. Nature knows silence. We lose contact with silence in the world we live in, but nature knows silence. And when you walk in nature, even when there are birds singing and tweeting and little noises that are going on, there's still a level of silence that's happening underneath of that in nature. And to be a part of that and to resonate with that is exquisite. So include that with your daily activities as part of what it is that you are using for your Kriya, your spiritual discipline. Get out in nature, walk, listen, sit, and absorb what is happening in nature. And the last truth, truth number 11, be love. Just be love. Don't do love, be love. And spread that love everywhere you go, so that when you show up, you are showing up with a sphere of love around you and through you that you are offering into every space that you go. That will not only inspire those who you come in contact with, it invigorates and inspires your own spirit journey. When you consciously become love and offer love, you'll find that everything else starts flowing much more easily into your life and into your spirit journey. So I will post these 11 truths, or I may post them, I might do both. I might post them and I might email them. But just knowing that you have the power to keep inspiring yourself to stay in this journey that you are so longing, your soul is asking you to wake up with it, saying, please take me, wake up, and let's do this journey together. So let's see how this week goes. Love to my beautiful women. See you next week.